So in fact, the next speaker is myself. I've decided to swap. I've taken advantage of being the chair to swap myself with Jan Corbel because both of us work at the EMBL. And personally, I am here partly because I'm an academician. I have several hats, just like Holly. As a scientist, I actually did my PhD in a cancer institute, the Imperial Cancer Research Fund, working on gene amplification events. I then actually spent almost 20 years at the Curie Institute in Paris, which is one of the centers for proton therapy. So I followed that quite closely during my time there. And now I'm the Director General of the EMBL. And I've decided that that is the hat I'm going to wear now to introduce a little bit what this organization does and aspires to do and what it produces. And that's how I will then pass to Jan Corbel, who will tell you a lot about what we do at EMBL in the field of data science, but also some of the research. So let's see if this works. What? Wrong direction. So yeah, in the context of this session and of this meeting, which is about indeed reducing inequalities in cancer care and prevention, my role as the Director General of EMBL is to make sure that an organization like this can actually contribute through the basic research and technology development that we do, and also create a model for the way to do the science and to the data, for example, and the tools. So a sort of democratization of science with the hope that this will indeed deal with some of these huge disparities we have in healthcare around the globe. So we work in many areas that are highly relevant to cancer. For example, discovering some of the foundations of cancer, the genetic basis of cancers, as we've already heard, and some of the treatments. We try to provide and extend the scientific training and services that are required for today's next generation of scientists and potential heroes in cancer treatment. We also try to ensure, and this is very much part of our DNA, I would say, open access to data, to publications, to softwares. And we are fairly good at partnering up with industry and healthcare to try and promote information sharing. So in case some of you don't know what the EMBL is, I thought I would have one slide on it. So we are Europe's only intergovernmental organization for molecular life science research. We work from 6 different sites in 5 different countries, the headquarters being in Heidelberg, which is the biggest site. The second biggest site is the European Bioinformatics Institute, which I'm sure many of you have heard of and know, which is based in Hingston in the UK. So EMBL was created in 1974 with 5 missions, 6 sites, 5 missions. The first being to produce excellent research, basic research, discovery-driven research. And this is really, I would say, the most important mission that we have and still try to deliver on. We also provide access to services and infrastructures which many people in Europe, but also around the world, take advantage of and make the most of. The tools that we provide and the data resources at the EBI is just one example. We also provide training across different disciplines, both internal training, but also courses and conferences. And I'm sure many of you know about the big conference center that we have in Heidelberg. And we try to do as much innovation and translation as we can. Young scientists come to EMBL, and very often the discoveries they make or the technologies they create immediately lead to innovation and translation. And I'll show you some examples of that in a minute. And last but not least, we are here to really try and integrate life sciences across frontiers. Despite all the geopolitical anxiety of this world, EMBL is here to really try and join forces across our member states. And we are actually supported by 28 member states. We're different from the European Union. Some of the countries we have at EMBL, including the UK, are not part of the European Union, but luckily EMBL is there to make sure that we hold everyone together. And we really are there to deliver on all these missions and to attract young scientists to become people who you will all be, we will all put our hopes into in the future. We're a very young organization. We were created almost 50 years ago, but in fact, we have a turnover that's very high. So a lot of people come and go, and we feed into different ecosystems. Many people from EMBL are actually in this room, used to be at EMBL. And this is just one example of how EMBL produces very basic discoveries, technologies, and translates them. It can take years, sometimes decades, but it constantly happens. And in the 1980s, Jacques Dubochet, who won the Nobel Prize for his development of the techniques surrounding cryo-EM, this technology was developed at EMBL, and he actually donated his medal to EMBL. And in fact, it was based on this that scientists then built on techniques, many techniques that have been used in the pandemic, but also back in the 90s to study the cell surface proteins of the tick-borne encephalitis virus. And in the 2010s, this then fed into the data banks that are used by global pharma to create the vaccine that many, many people use. So EMBL goes from basic technology-driven research to human health solutions. And here are just some of the most recent highlights in this area. For example, talking about AI, EMBL was very much involved in the AlphaFold database that I hope many of you have heard of and hopefully many of you use. So this was developed by DeepMind, Google DeepMind, and in collaboration with EMBL, we made it available to the whole world. So this was a tool, or it is a tool, an approach that is really powerful. From any sequence, one can predict protein structure. Of course, it's based on all the amazing structural biology that was done over many decades. But now there's very accurate prediction of protein structures through AI, and at the click of your computer, you can actually come up with the structure of your favorite protein. Of course, it doesn't solve everything, but it does mean a leap in being able to understand how proteins work and potential, for example, drug targets, signaling pathways, etc. The other area that has been very active recently is our wish to engage in global science. And so EMBL has been very active. We just recently signed a memorandum of understanding with UNESCO in order to promote open science and global health. And we believe very deeply that it's only through open science that you can accelerate knowledge. And I think the third example I'm showing here illustrates the pandemic. It's thanks to the fact that there was data sharing, and at EMBL, our contribution was to set up data portals, in fact, which we already had, but were able to repurpose to rise up to the pandemic, that the COVID-19 data platform that the European Commission set up was based. And this, I think, was one of the great accelerators of the fight against COVID-19, sharing the data, understanding what was happening rapidly in the space of months. And EMBL was a very active player in that. And this is the last example of our global activities. We are very involved in the Global Alliance for Genomics and Health, which is a policy framing and technical standard setting organization that really tries to seek responsible genomic data sharing within a human rights framework. So we've just started a new program, which I won't be telling you all about, but I thought it would be a nice transition to what we're going to be hearing about also from Jan Corbel. So this new program started just last year, and it seeks to really open up a new era of molecular life sciences, really to feed into this need, the challenges we have in human and planetary health, and of course that includes cancer. So Molecules to Ecosystems is a program that seeks to understand how life happens in its natural context, be that a tumor in a human being, an organism in a community, a population, and all of the various environmental influences that life is subjected to. And as we are EMBL, we seek to get molecular mechanistic understanding. And in the context of cancer, there are many areas that our new program seeks to rise up to. We've set up genomic medicine platforms that really try to provide clinicians with EMBL-guided mechanistic understanding of human biology to match the kinds of data-driven methods, tools, and therapies that we can provide to precision medicine practices. And this is something that we would like to do country by country, to help everyone be able to take advantage of this kind of approach. The second, I will not say much more about because I know Jan will probably say something about it, and this is really trying to fight cancer with data, tools, and discoveries. The pan-cancer analysis of whole genomes was very much also EMBL's involvement. And we have a long track record of trying to understand cancer by doing it at a global scale, and also in the context of the microbiome, which I'll say a word about in a minute. And last but not least, the environment, of course, comes at every level. We heard about this a little bit this morning. We are interested in how environmental insults can affect our health. And we know that although, for example, cancer is a genetic disease, the environment is hugely important. Toxins, the drugs, the pollutants that we're exposed to. And so this is one of the areas that EMBL is now seeking to move into. So we have a long history at EMBL, or recent but intense history, of trying to link microbiomes with human health. And in the context of cancer, I'm just showing you 3 examples here. On the one hand, applying a sort of machine learning approach to try and understand how cancers interact with microbial signatures. This is both in the context of colorectal cancer, but also pancreatic cancer. And we seek to use all types of techniques, not only the omics techniques, but imaging techniques, and to integrate them. And therefore, to try and find the links between microbes, our tissues, and of course, the immune system. Another area or series of areas that we've moved into is to try and build up new models to study cancer in vitro. And so, of course, cancer doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in its own environment and ecosystems. And of course, vascularization is absolutely critical if you want to understand how a normal tissue behaves in humans, but also in cancer. And in one of our sites, the EMBL Barcelona site, we have scientists who are setting up vascularized microfluidic and on-chip models to rise up to this. And of course, that means we can then screen for drugs, tumor drugs and transportation, but also try to look at the effects, for example, of sex hormones on tumor responses. We have other approaches. For the sake of time, I won't go into all of them, but I'm very happy to discuss afterwards if you're interested. Lung organoid approaches, but also developing new types of biomarkers. This is a very recent set of studies, for example, sampling somatic telomere fusions and trying to see whether we can detect this in the blood of cancer patients, particularly for those types of tumors that are traditionally quite difficult to sample. So I'm almost finished. AI, we've heard a lot about it, and I think this is the future. I completely agree with Ollie. It's that sort of expert that we should all have in our pocket, and I think in the context of cancer, there's absolutely no doubt that this is a new era of AI tools for preclinical research. And I know that Jan will be saying more about this, so I will not go into the details here. And I do want to say that at EMBL, we are very committed to making sure that the tools and approaches we have are available to the world, but also to the private sector, because we believe that to accelerate the capacity to treat diseases, you need to have partnerships with industry. And so in the middle here, you can see the Open Targets platform, as it's called, which was a partnership set up between EMBL EBI, together with GSK and the Sanger Institute, and has grown hugely. And this is an initiative to try and nurture public-private partnerships in order for pharma to be able to better define drug targets by using critical data to look at the drug target associations in, for example, cancer, but in other diseases as well. So this, I think, is the way that the world should be working in the future, more such collaboration, sharing, and it is possible. I think this was for me, or for us, a sort of proof of principle. And I won't say more about UNCAN, but I know that there are people here who will be talking about it. EMBL was also involved in the European Horizon Europe mission on cancer. So EMBL is a consultant in this initiative, and we're very, very pleased to see this happening. And last but not least, we continue after AlphaFold. There are many other open databases that EMBL is committed to creating, which will allow high-quality, curated data sets to become available to AI approaches. And as an intergovernmental organization that is here to seek to accelerate science, we feel it's our role to try and do this as systematically and efficiently as possible. And with that, I will end, and thank you. And I will hand over to my colleague, Jan Korbel. And